Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to stand here before you all. And again, I do not take this lightly. So again, I would like to thank the Turtle Creek Women's TEDx organization for putting this together. When I first received the call for consideration, it took me back to my childhood. Because again, my name is Nakia Douglas. And so I was wondering why the Turtle Creek Women's TEDx organization was calling me. It took me back to my childhood because I was quite insightful and adventurous at times, and one of the scholarships I applied for was to the AKAs. Well, I didn't know what an AKA was, and AKAs didn't know what a Nakia was. And so long story short, I was the first male to win their scholarship. So to this day, whenever they have events, they'll call me back and ask, if a young man wins, do you mind coming and sharing that story? So again, having this opportunity took me back to my childhood. I stand before you all humbled today because I am a shattered vessel of my Heavenly Father. I am the flawed husband of Gloria. I am the fractured son of Edna and Ernest Douglas. I am the distant grandson of Lily Faye Haynes and the Douglas and Davis families. I am the cautious new leader of the South Oak Cliff feeder pattern. I am the underprepared and overwhelmed new father of Zaire and Zamaya. So as a flawed vessel, I didn't understand why I should be talking to you all about changing the face of success. Because in the midst of my challenges, in the midst of all my flaws, why should I? Why should I talk to you all about the adversities that we see impacting our communities? Why should I talk to you all about the adversities we see in our communities with our young men? Why should I talk to you all about the travesties that we're seeing in the media within the lives of young African American and Hispanic brothers? That's why we have to change the face of success. And understanding changing the face of success, I had to go back and think about my journey. Because again, I presented to you all a lot of faults of why I shouldn't be here. But hopefully you understand and will come to understand that through your faults, you can ultimately find favor. Because it's understanding that those faults were not put there for any specific reason except to grow you and prepare you for the next generation. To grow and prepare you for the next work. To grow and prepare you for the next blessings that you're going to be bestowed upon others. So it's the understanding that through this work and through this talk of changing the face of success that I had to reflect over my life. I am the child of Edna Douglas. And it's understanding that, and if you understand, I had to go back and be apologetic to some because some will say, well, why didn't you introduce your father first? Because my father wasn't in my life. So therefore, I had to pay homage to the woman who raised me. It's understanding that I had to pay homage in the educational sphere for those persons who prepared me and built me to be the man that I am today. And so it's understanding, going back to those flaws, that someone saw something in me, that those flaws became my favor. And so therefore I stand before you to pay back that gift that was given to me. Because to him whom much is given, much is required. To be here with you all and to see this crowd takes me back to my days at the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy. Because we have something each morning that we call Lyceum, and Lyceum is the gathering. And if you know anything about Lyceum, if you know anything about the campus, everything starts and stops with our mission statement, which is to develop young men into impactful leaders through the development of their intellectual, moral, physical, social, and emotional skills for the global society tomorrow. Beyond that, build better husbands and fathers and leaders for our families and community. It's the intentionality in the development of this campus that you have to understand why we had to change the face of success. Right. Our young men come from all over the city. Our young men come with baggage. Our young men come with stories. Our young men come with challenges. But every day they come. Yeah. That's the key, they come. So when we look at the work of what we're doing within our school systems, we have to always remember that our children come. And so therefore, as professional educators, we have to come with our best game at all times. As community members, you have to come with your best game to ensure and expect that those kids are receiving the best education possible. There's an understanding that to him whom much is given, much is required. And so what is poured into those students from a holistic perspective is very intentional. The intellectual. All of the students there are exposed to pre-AP, AP, and dual credit courses, whether they qualify for them or not. The moral. Within Lyceum, we teach the habits of mind. We teach our young men chivalry, but totally, we teach our young men that character is what you do when no one's looking. Because it's how you stand when your parents are not there. It's how you stand when you're with your friends in the neighborhood. It's how you stand when no one knows you, that your character truly stands out. So it's to understand that as we're guiding these young men through this process, they won't put themselves in difficult situations that could change or end their lives. The physical. The physical development of our young men is quite different from a perspective that we only offer non-traditional sports, rowing, lacrosse, and golf. And if you know anything about our communities, in urban communities, that's an anomaly. And so the first time the young men come in and see that experience and they see this gentleman walking around with this lacrosse stick and they're wondering, what do we do with this and how do we do that? It's exposure. Because for so many of our students, they haven't been exposed to opportunities, or they haven't been exposed to expectations, or they have been exposed to great educators. And so when we go back to the exposing them to physical, you're also leading your way to the intellectual. Yes, intellectual. Yes. The social. I wear a pin on my chest. This pin actually represents that I graduated from the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy. Now, mind you, some of you are saying, well, you are the founder. How did you get to graduate from the campus, and what does that mean? The social is about the brotherhood. Within this pen, there are 4 houses. If you've seen the Harry Potter films, you're familiar with the young men and the young women that competed across the campus for the supreme title of saying that I'm number 1. Well, the young men there at that campus compete with their grades, behavior, amount of books they read, parent participation, uniform recycling efforts. You name it, if they can compete for it, they do so, all in the name of saying that we're number 1. Because there's also the understanding of brotherhood that he's not heavy, he's my brother. Whatever I do not only affects me, but also affects others. Yeah, and so when I understand that my brotherhood and my actions and my character is not only dependent upon my success, but the success of others, I take ownership in that. There's finally the understanding of what happens with our young men through their intellectual, moral, physical, social, and emotional. The speaker earlier talked about some of our young men are taught that boys don't cry, men don't cry. Our young men are also taught that you stand direct, you give a firm handshake, you give them eye contact. But one thing we often miss with our young men is understanding that they face challenges. It was hard to say goodbye to our young men because they raised me. So people think that as a professional educator that you're there to instruct the kids and create a better environment for them and to teach them, but in most instances they teach us. Because when I talked about that shattered spirit, that flawed husband, that distant grandson, all of that, my young men helped me through. And so it's also understanding that the equipped aren't always called, but the called are always equipped. Right. Those young men didn't understand that their calling to that campus was for a bigger purpose. Because for some of those young men, the opportunity to come to the campus became hope for the hopeless. For some of those young men, their development, their growth became a voice for the voiceless, where their families may not have had the hope. And so therefore their son or their grandson or their nephew or their cousin or their neighbor now is giving them hope. He's also giving them a voice because now he understands and they understand that if he can make it, I can make it too. But also they provide prayers for those who don't know how to pray. They don't understand all the prayers that have come forth for them on their behalf. but also they don't understand how the prayers and the grace and mercy that's been provided to them and through them to us has added so much to our community. Because there's a true saying, whether there are strong schools, there's a strong community. And although if you come to our neighborhood and you see our surrounding, most will say, this isn't the best place to put a campus like this, because the young men wear gray slacks, navy blue blazers, blue Oxford shirts, a gray tie in middle school, a navy blue tie in upper school, and ultimately a gray and navy blue striped tie upon entering their senior year. But then there's also understanding that right before graduation, you receive that distinguished bow tie that distinguishes your year of graduation. And so when we talk about giving hope to the hopeless, a voice to the voiceless, and prayers for those who don't know how to pray for themselves, just their stature alone does that, not only for their families, but also for the community at large. Because now the community sees our future is going to be okay. Yes. Because now our world understands that this is going to be all right. And so when you think about it, and I talk about the campus, and I've talked about the academics, I've talked about the opportunities, but then there's also the extracurricular activities that our young men are involved in. Because beyond the pre-AP and the AP, beyond the non-traditional sports, there's the understanding they're going to study a foreign language. So our young men are exposed to Latin, Mandarin, and Spanish. They're exposed to study abroad opportunities. Our young men have traveled to Chile, South Africa, Dublin, Ireland, Taiwan, China, Japan, you name it, our young men have probably touched that continent. But it's only through exposure. It's only through the understanding that don't allow your faults to become your favor, because within that you gain a strength that no man and no woman can take away. So some people say, well, where'd you get this from? How'd you do that? Why'd you do that? I became a student. And I became a student at my most vulnerable state. Because I didn't want to leave my last job. I wasn't looking for this job. I wasn't looking for this opportunity. But I came from a place of brokenness. And so in that place of brokenness, I found my favor through my faults. And so all of you all in this audience, I ask you to find your favor through your faults, because at that most challenging moment, I found my faith. And in finding my faith, I sought out the best practices. So I studied the best public, private, and charter schools from St. Mark's, Jesuits, Lyceum, Bishop Dunn, Episcopal School of Dallas, St. Philip's, Kipp Academy, Townview, Irma Rangel, Fort Worth Young Women's Leadership Academy, Booker T. Washington, Urban Prep in Chicago, Bluford Drew Jemison STEM Academy in Baltimore, and ultimately traveled to Beijing and Chongqing, China. Speaking with principals, headmasters, teachers, students, alumni, board members, community members, what worked, what hadn't worked, and if you would start a new school, what would you put in place? And somebody had the audacity to ask me why. And I told them, because, again, understanding where our young men are coming from, the tragedies that's happening in our communities, it's imperative that we create the ultimate learning environment for our students. And then people started asking me, well, is this a private school or is this a charter school? I said, no, it's a public school. And we pride ourselves in offering a private school education at a public school price, because our tax dollars and our taxpayers demand it. So to understand the true essence of the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy is to understand the mission, to develop young men into impactful leaders through the development of their intellectual, moral, physical, social, and emotional skills for the globe side to tomorrow. Beyond that, build better husbands, fathers, and leaders for our families and community. I told you I graduated from the campus. So you may say, what rites of passage, or what are you talking about with that? When our young men first enter the building, there's the penning ceremony. So whether you're in the house of alliance, whether you're in the house of decree, you're in the house of justice, or the house of expedition, you're specifically within that house. You're part of that brotherhood. You're learning that character is what a man does when nobody's looking. You're also learning that the first person you believe in, the first person you lead, and the first person you love is yourself, and you can't do so to others until you learn to lead, love, and believe in yourself. Yeah. It's the embodiment of this upon graduation that our young men receive their final pen. And the final penning ceremony is through graduation. And as the young men stand upon the stage, I ask them, brothers of BOMLA, prepare your pen. Men of BOMLA, wear your pen. And so the final pen that our young men wear actually has the entire crest. Because now you embody everything it means to be a man of the Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy. So as I close my time with you all, I hope that I imparted a message to you all that first and foremost, in the midst of all your faults, find your favor. And understand that the equipped aren't always called, but the called are always equipped. It's my pleasure to stand before you all, and I thank you all for this time.